I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV Velocities in Music. Today, guys, we're going to do an album from one of Tom and I's favorite bands, Dredg. Their new album in 2011 that actually is going to come out probably the day after this gets posted. Chuckles and Mr. Squeezy. What an album title. And if you look at the album cover, it's kind of creepy.
Yeah, it's horrifying.
When I first saw... and just to give a precursor, I think Tom and I disagree a little bit on this album, but in the kind of the same vein, if that makes any sense. But when I first heard this album title, Chuckles and Mr. Squeezy, I wanted to go, WTF, mate, because what the hell is that kind of an album title is that? And coming off of Dredg's last release that came out in 2009, The Pariah, The Parrot, The Delusion, which is this giant concept album with a lot of really thick, crisp production, and that just rocked your face off, and it actually was quite experimental. There's a lot of variety on that album, and Dredg has always been one to show variety, to show versatility, and rock your face off, and at the same time provide a lot of mood and atmosphere, and it's just something that I'm into, and anybody in Tom's into. And so I was excited to see where they were going to go from there, and here it's 2 years later, they've come out with Chuckles and Mr. Squeezy. And I kind of experienced a huge disappointment. I'll wait to get more of my opinion. I want Tom to talk about what his experience was.
Well, first off, Dredg, as you said, they've been one of my favorite bands for a long time. And the great thing about this band is their versatility. Right. Just the wide range of sounds that they've had through all of their albums. You don't get a single album that really sounds the same as any other Dredg album. And They definitely kept that up with Chuckles and Mr. Squeezy, but in an entirely different direction. Dan The Automator produced it, so you get a lot of that more electronic sound. Unfortunately, to me, I think that comes at the expense of the rock sound that has really characterized them throughout the years. That's one thing that's remained true. It's not really here. I feel like there could have been a better blend of those two aspects of Dredg. Now, I think, though, that this is going to be one that, like Jake, this is probably going to piss a lot of fans off. I was generally pretty disappointed in this album. Mainly just, I don't hate it, but mainly it just doesn't live up to the outstanding work that they've done in the past. Relatively speaking, it's even worse than it is, I think, just compared to the rest of their body of work. But the thing is, at first, I really was kind of like, maybe this will be okay. Then I hated it. Then I liked it a little more. I've been all over the place with this one. And it really just depends on the day. Depends on what mood I'm in. Depends on how nostalgic I am for their old work. But in general, there are some things that, regardless of all those contingencies, will stay true about this record. And that's that, for me at least, the production and the departure in style isn't what ruins it. What ruins it is I just think that this is some of the most lackluster songwriting I've heard out of Dredg. The songs aren't that memorable. I don't feel like there's a whole lot put into them. I mean, if this production style was paired with Pariah quality songwriting, then it would work.
Yeah, even if they were trying to take a different angle.
Yeah, exactly. But here I pick out the songs individually, and there are some that work better than others, definitely. Even like track 2, Upon Returning, I think stylistically that would have fit with Pariah. Just in the context of that album, it probably would have been the worst song.
Right.
And that's the thing. I feel like this is kind of a bunch of B-sides, maybe even. And I don't have any evidence to back that up. I don't think that's exactly what it is, but it just sounds like it. I mean, even track 6, The Ornament, that melody can be found at the end of Catch Without Arms in the last track. Also on the Waterborne soundtrack that they did, the track Stepping Stones has that same melody. So they're even recycling some of their own ideas and just fleshing them out differently. Right. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, the track Kalathat, track 8, which is a track pick of both of ours. That's one of the best Dredg songs, I think, regardless of album.
And it's really the only song I liked on this album.
But the other stuff, is among their worst, unfortunately. So sometimes it works better than others. It's just, it's tough. I think this is really going to be tough for Dredg fans because...
I think it'll even be tough for non-Dredg fans.
Yeah.
I mean, I really do. I don't think that this album has a lot of good qualities to offer folks. I think that if you're comparing it to other Dredg albums, which in my opinion vary greatly in quality amongst themselves, I think this is the clear worst Dredg album. But even in comparison to a lot of other albums just released in 2011, but in the last few years, I mean, I think that there's a lot better albums out there that are offering this style of music. This is, for one thing, Dredg has always been a band that has experimented a little bit. They've pushed. It's kind of like this prog rock that focused on mood and atmosphere, which is they rocked your face off, lots of mood, lots of atmosphere, and what's not to love about that? But here the songwriting is, the structures are verse, chorus, verse, chorus. You guys know I hate that. You know I'm not going to tolerate that on an album, especially when the songs get really predictable and they're using bland choruses that don't have a lot of good songwriting here. But a lot of the tricks that they used in the past, even one thing that we both noticed is Gavin's vocals just aren't up to snuff here. And he's never been a vocalist that has a great range, and nor are we to ever really pick on vocals that much. But when vocals become an issue, it usually is a pretty large issue, and I just feel like he just sounds so disconnected. He sounds so, just these mundane, bland parts that don't add anything to the music, and the instrumentals, what you know of Dredg and what Dredg fans are familiar with, but any kind of real rock outfit, even when they do something kind of new and different, even like say Muse in their newest release, they went a different direction, but still there was some good instrumentals on here. I don't feel like there's good instrumentals anywhere on this album besides maybe in the acoustic track 8, Kalathat or Hat. And what they did is it's like, as Tom said, at the expense of some of the songwriting and instrumentals, they added some electronic elements. But here's my argument. I really don't have a problem with adding in synths or any other electronic elements to your music. It's just the problem is it still has to be well written. It still has to bring something to the table and take the sound to the next level. I don't feel like that was accomplished on Chuckles and Mr. Squeezy.
And that's the thing, is that I'd better not see any comments on this review that say, you gotta allow Dredg to do different things. They're gonna do different things, and they always have. That's not the point, people.
They have to do it well.
It's not the stylistic change we don't like, it's the songwriting. Also, these tracks just don't really blend into an album all that well. And for a band, Leitmotif, their first album, flows almost better than any. It's like Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon quality album flow. Like one continuous listen. This is the exact opposite. There's just, it's kind of, just
it's just
chunks.
Tracks. It's a compilation of tracks that aren't that good, that just have a verse, chorus, here's a bridge, and here's a chorus. It's that simple, that predictable, and it's not even well written. There's not a lot of engaging qualities about this. What Dredg always does bring to the table is this was more focused on mood. Dredg always has some interesting lyrics. Now, whether or not, I feel like, depending on the type of person you are, you're going to be attached to a certain style of lyrics or not. I've always liked Dredg's lyrics all right. I don't think they're fantastic, but I think they're all right.
Yeah.
And I think that really those are the only two qualities that I liked about this album. And really, when it comes down to songwriting, song structures, the scope, they didn't put a lot into it, the concept driving this album, the vocals. This isn't even an original sound. A lot of bands have done this before, and just honestly, I just don't think that this has a lot of offer. I'm settling on a 48 for a scale.
I'm gonna go 65.
Okay. What did you guys think? Will you please leave us a comment at www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic. Also, you need to follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and check out Ian's Tumblr blog at vimtv.tumblr.com. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.